Hey guys, this is Solution PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Green Through Through by Another Fucking Robin. This is Chapter 27. There are a few things more in the world than Peter enjoys than web slinging. The strain of his muscles and the rush of wind and adrenaline in his bones makes his soul sing in happiness. But a couple things come close, like train surfing. The first time Peter even went train surfing, it was with Wade. It was his prize for Team Red's first successful drug bust. Dee Dee didn't want to join him because it would have been bad for his rep, or whatever. So Wade and Peter went alone. They both pretended not to notice Matt stalking them. Peter can't get drunk or high, but he can sure as hell feel adrenaline coursing through his veins, and he loves the rush it brings him. He loves the giddiness of wind whipping through his hair, but most of all, he loves being able to share that feeling of flying with someone else. Most of his experiences with that happy rush are also tied to his role as Spider-Man. He swings beside buildings and below helicopters to pursue rampaging villains or to stop petty crime. He's routinely thrown and kicked and punted through the air by his enemies. God, even flying with Iron Man used to mean he was also getting his ass verbally handed to him. Swinging is amazing, but Peter won't forget the reason why he's swinging in the first place. Train surfing wasn't like that. It was just fun. Just for the joy and the rush of the unending laughter. Just for the slap of the wind in their faces and the unmooring adventurous feeling of only having your feet and your will to ground you. Peter isn't train surfing currently, but he is clinging to the back of one, traveling at high speed, so basically the same thing. For the first time in a long time, Peter feels good. His breakfast at Martha's didn't fill him up by any means, but it definitely reminded him that eating is a thing that he does for a reason. Never had oatmeal tasted so good. He also feels pleasantly cleaner. Peter doesn't think he'll ever scrub off the veneer of grime he's accumulated over his stay in Gotham, but it'll have to be good enough. He finds himself questioning why he's been avoiding Martha's. He feels good like this. Food warming the gaping black hole in his middle, and the residual heat of his shower protecting him from the frigid Gotham wind. It's almost like we've been telling you that the whole time. Peter unsticks a hand from the train carriage to give Sam a dismissive and nonchalant wave, just to feel the ghostie's blood pressure collectively increase. Because he's kind of a dick like that. While his hand is detached, he tries in vain to push his bangs out of his face. His hair is longer than it has been in a very long time, whipping into his eyes, white strands flashing through his vision like rain. Though, in a roundabout way, he's glad for the wind. He hates the way that his hair rests on the back of his neck, making him want to cringe away from his own skin. He's going to cut it soon. Predictably, that doesn't work, and Peter resigns himself to 20 minutes of carefully trying not to ingest any hair. Oh, wait. He fishes around in his trouser pockets and pulls out a slightly crumpled yellow sticky note. Aha! He holds it in high celebration before remembering that he is, in fact, on the outside of a moving train, and he quickly retracts his arm before the note has time to fly out of his hand or rip. He cradles it close to his chest, gripping the edges and trying to read the message through the ripples caused by the wind. Hey, Pete. I'm performing a wellness check. Keep the helmet. She was headed for the scrapper anyway, and I bet she'll be put to good use if you keep her. I understand not wanting to meet regularly with the crime lord, especially because you're an out-of-towner. So here's a list of places you can go to if you need help. I trust you not to give this information to anyone. Good. Peter feels warmth bloom in his chest all over again. He tries and fails to reconcile at the gnawing loss in his gut. 72 Bacarn Street. Leslie Tompkins Clinic. Martha's house, a trustworthy shelter. Steelworks near the eastmost dock. Good place to squat. The speakeasy. Ask for Carmen. She'll give you food. A smile breaks out across Peter's face, and he tucks the note back into his pocket, snugly tucked between all the other bits of paper in there. The edges are slowly becoming worn by the amount he thumbs them between his fingers. Peter finds he doesn't mind. The first sign that this school day is going to be odd is that all of his new friends are standing in front of the entrance, looking like terribly concealed undercover cops. Tim and Steph stand shoulder to shoulder, arms crossed, having a very heated argument in Arabic. Cass stands off to the side, scanning the crowd of mingling students. Her posture reads more relaxed than her siblings. Back slightly slouched, shoulders slightly loose. But it still doesn't bode well. Duke is missing. His only comfort from the prickly sense of something is wrong is the lack of anticipation in spider sense. Cass meets his eyes and waves him over, the action big and boisterous, taking up lots of space in a uniquely Cass way. It alerts the other two to his presence, and they stop bickering immediately, pretending to be nonchalant. He strolls up to them, unsure whether to be concerned or amused. "What you guys doing?" He speaks in signs at the same time. "Oh, we were just waiting for you," Tim says, craning his neck to see the car parked behind Peter while Steph spins him around, brushing lint off his shoulder and inspecting his face. "I didn't see your parent/guardian drop you off." Peter snorts at the phrasing, allowing himself to relax slightly. "That's because I make my own way to school, Tim." The pair give him considering looks before engaging in some sort of silent conversation. Cass breaks from them with a fond, if slightly annoyed eye roll and taps her shoulder to make sure his eyes are on her. Before she starts signing, "Class, you have? What?" Boy glances back one last time at the rest of her siblings and signs and speaks at the same time. "Spanish." With... Peter gives her a confused look, not understanding the last sign. She seems to catch on pretty quickly and spells it out for him. D-U-K-E. Duke. Duke's sign name seems to be a mesh of the sign for bright, smile, and brother. Peter copies it a few times to be sure he's got it, and then remembers to actually answer her question and nods. She links his arm in hers and signs to him, "Do not worry about siblings." Silly. He chuckles and lets her lead him to his Spanish room with that gentle, firm grip of hers. Where is Duke, by the way? "Doctor, back by lunch." He considers that. The lie came smoothly, as quick as it could with her arm in his. In fact, there was no physical cues that she could be lying at all. But there was a slight buffer in her heart rate, and his spider senses gave him a small buzz at the base of his skull, telling him that she was indeed lying. Peter lets his earlier wariness wash over him again, just a little. Cass glances at him out of the corner of her eye and gives him a surprised smile and a curious head tilt before breaking into a large grin and taking off at a run, pulling Peter down a crowded corridor by the crook of his elbow with surprised laughs falling from his mouth. Duke is absent for the whole of first period, and most of second, arriving only about 20 minutes after the end of class. When he does get in, he acts oddly. He knocks on the classroom door to be let in, but with the side of his fist instead of his knuckles. He says a short greeting to the teachers and explains he was at a doctor's appointment, but his voice sounds oddly strained, and his lungs don't sound like they're expanding enough. He walks to the seat beside Peter with an almost invisible limp, but Peter sees it. He hears the wince in his breath every time he puts weight on his left leg. Duke is injured, but hiding it well. Maybe it's why he was at the doctor's? Peter hopes so, even though he suspects otherwise. He sits down and flashes Peter a large, genuine smile and opens up his notebook. "Hiya, Pete. What'd I miss?" He tilts his head consideringly. "Not much. We were going over past perfect tense and irregular conjugations. Miss made us pair up and do speaking practice." "Oh, God, I'm so sorry." Peter tilts back in his chair and dramatically places a hand over his heart. "You abandoned me to the mercies of the 1%. Will you ever find it in yourself to forgive me?" Duke laments, matching his tone perfectly. "I don't know if it's possible," he says, wiping an imaginary tear from his eye. They lock eyes with matching smiles and burst into quiet laughter that's muffled by the background chatter of the classroom. Once they regain their composure, Peter slides his notebook towards his friend and lets him look over the lesson notes. "You, Peter Parker, are a godsend." In response, the boy in question takes a small bow. Duke chuckles and then sharply inhales, grabbing his torso. Peter looks up in concern, tilting his head towards his schoolmate, focusing his hearing on the boy's chest. His lungs are spasming as Duke suppresses coughs. When they expand to brush against his ribcage, they immediately recede. Peter can't hear any scraping or scratching though, so his ribs aren't broken, just bruised. Wait, bruised ribs? That's not normal. Duke's a civilian. Peter leans forward and places a steadying hand on Duke's shoulder. "Dude, are you okay?" Duke tries to reassure him, but ends up choking on a cough instead. He thumps his idiot friend lightly on the back to make him release the cough, and Duke spends the next minute trying to regain his breath. "I'm fine," he says as soon as he's able to. "Just a stomach bug. It's why I was at the doctor's. I'm on a course of antibiotics. I know how to identify bruised ribs, Duke." And that stops Duke short, allowing Peter to ghost his hand over the area and assesses the damage while his friend sputters. "Have you ever bruised your ribs before?" he asks, knowing better than to inquire into the origin of the injury. knowing from his 4 years to 10 years as spandex vigilante that those sorts of questions just prompt victims to become defensive. He'll look into it in his own time. I don't know. What? I'm gonna take that as a no, he says, prodding an especially sensitive area by accident and eliciting a wince. He apologizes briefly before continuing his inspection. Okay, so you have 4 bruised ribs. 3 on the right and 1 on the left, mostly at the back. You shouldn't lean on any hard surfaces for a while. You also shouldn't try to hold in your coughs. And try to breathe normally. Pneumonia is not fun. Trust me. That hadn't been a fun recovery. Turns out radioactive spider DNA heals broken bones and nasty wounds like a piece of cake. But a chest infection? God forbid. Spidey, what the fuck, kid? Painkillers are probably a good idea, he adds musingly. Probably? It is a miracle you survived your adolescence. What? It isn't Peter's fault that he metabolizes painkillers too quickly for them to be of any use. And anyway, the heroes in his head should be more forgiving if this is how they react to an itty-bitty bruised rib. He doesn't want to know how they'd react if they found out about the time he used a staple gun to give himself emergency stitches. Or the time... Stop. Just stop, please. Dr. Strange makes a string of vaguely chicken-like sounds that rise in incredulity, before announcing, I give up. That seems to be the consensus around the rest of the peanut gallery. So Peter decides to tune back into reality precisely as the bell rings to signal the end of class. You mean probably? I said what I said, he defends and starts packing away. Oh, and pro tip, roll your shoulders back to help breathe. He looks up only to be met with a deeply horrified and concerned look from Duke. What? Duke retains his aura of weirdness all the way through the hallway into the cafeteria until they split apart, Peter lining up for food and Duke excusing himself to the toilet. When he emerges from the cafeteria with his tray, as much food as he can afford, and then more stuffed in his pockets. Normally he would feel bad, but half the kids at Gotham Prep have packed lunches made by private frickin' chefs. And Peter smelled how much food was thrown out when he was making his webs, and the garbage has a lock on it so he can't dumpster dive for it later. Neither his moral compass or the ghosties object to the petty theft. He scans the lunch table and spots Cass sitting at their table, and wanders over. Mind if I sit? She fixes him with a confused stare that he has no hope of deciphering and pats the seat beside her. He sits down. So what lessons have you been in? Sign language. Oh, sweet. I didn't know they taught that here. Special. For me. You enjoy it? She makes a so-so gesture with her hands. Hard for brain, but rewarding. Yeah. I remember when I was learning for the first time. It took a long time. Good teacher? Depends. Clint was my main teacher, a friend of mine. Great guy, very patient, but very easily distracted. Made it hard to learn to hold a conversation when he'd go down on different rabbit holes about different signs for dinosaurs. Cass laughs quietly, the sound like the soft tinkling of bells. It reminds me of my brother. Also She shakes her hand out of frustration. Distraktabl. Like this, he says, showing himself tucking his thumbs into his palms and pressing his fingers together, and gesturing away from himself to the left. Distractible. After seeing it once, Cass gets it and thanks him. Other teacher? Miss Lopez. She's also amazing, very badass, but she was fully deaf and didn't use aids like Clint, so just watching the two of them sign to each other was a learning experience. Her teaching style was more look and learn, unlike Clint, who structured it more like a lesson, or at least, tried to. She sounds cool. She was. The two lapse into silence, taking bites of their lunch, and in the pleasant quiet, Peter notices something. Well, two somethings. Steph and Tim, huddled behind one of the support pillars, whispering furiously about rehab? Then, before Peter has time to dissect that, they peek out from behind the pillar like honest-to-God Scooby-Doo characters and send a quick glance his way. They don't meet eyes with him on account of him not even looking their way. Hooray for Spidey-level peripheral vision. But he knows he won't be able to keep up with his charade of obliviousness. Thankfully, he isn't forced to break it. Even without his super hearing, he would have been able to hear Steph's explanation of, "A PowerPoint? It's not a fucking shareholders meeting, followed by a resounding slap sound and indignant ow from Tim. Peter glances over at Cass to gauge the reaction he should be having, only to see her bent over the table with her head in her hand, shaking her head slowly and signing in a manner that suggests that this kind of thing happens often. She spreads her fingers to make eye contact, and he sees the mirth dancing in her eyes. Notices the slight shaking of her shoulders with silent giggles. He snorts and joins her in laughing, bending over the table and clutching his stomach. He opens his eyes just in time to lock eyes with Steph, who's peeking around the pillar. I think they heard us. Peter's about 2 seconds away from absolutely losing it, when a hand cuts through Stephanie's hair, parting it like a curtain to reveal Tim, also peeking out at him and Cass, both of whom dissolve into uncontrollable laughter at the sight. The two behind the pillar quickly hide away again. You think? Their laughter only intensifies, Cass leaning back and laughing with her full belly, sounding light and airy, Peter wheezing over the table, smacking his palm into its surface. The other two reveal themselves and walk sheepishly towards the table. You guys are not slick, Peter manages between wheezes. The three siblings exchange looks as if he'd said something funny. At least Tim has the decency to look mildly offended. So, Peter starts, sobering to the mood of the people around him. Steph seems to be vibrating with nervous energy, and Tim seems to have consciously straightened himself out, reminding him too much of Harry whenever he interacted with his dad. What were you guys conspiring about? We weren't conspiring, Tim insists, bringing his hand soberly behind his back. Well, we kinda were, Steph stage whispers to him. Tim glares at her until she lifts her hands in surrender. Tim then moves to stand in front of her. We wanted to talk to you about something. What? We aren't mad at you. Yeah, not at all. Just worried. What? Tim takes a deep breath before stating, we know what you do after school. What? Peter's only vigilanted one frickin' night in this godforsaken universe, and he's already been found out? Peter's freaking out, really freaking out. Are they gonna call the Justice League on him? Is that a thing people can do? Could they send him to Arkham Asylum? He knows about Batman's no meta rule. His breathing starts speeding up, his heart knocking at his chest. This is bad. Steph sits on the free seat on Peter's side and places a reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's really, really unsafe, Peter, and we don't want to see you get hurt. Yeah, Pete, and Gotham has a lot of vigilantes. We don't want you to get into trouble. Shit. Are Gotham vigilantes territorial? What is he talking about? Of course they are. Batman is literally mad in a cape. They both even have their little cow specs for crying out loud. Oh my god, Peter is so screwed. And recreational drug use is especially dangerous in Gotham. People cut with all kinds of toxins and shit. Wait. And even if you're not the one using the drugs, they can still have detrimental effects in the lives of others. What? While Peter is buffering, Tim whips out his phone, preloaded with a fucking PowerPoint presentation entitled Why Drugs Are Bad by Tim Drake, which he then clicks on, the intro slide turning into an origami crane and flying away, to reveal a slide so densely packed with statistics that even Peter and his spider-enhanced vision can't make out all the text. The key takeaway from this slide is that Gotham has a really high opioid abuse issue, and that drug overdose deaths involving opioids have been continuing to rise dramatically from 1,098 deaths to 2,205 in the last year. This has been primarily affected by polysubstance use, fentanyl, Oh my god, Tim. I told you that a PowerPoint wouldn't be useful. She snatches the phone out of her hand and calmly hands it to Cass, who slips it in her pocket, both of them entirely ignoring Tim's indignant squawk. Steph puts her hands on Peter's shoulders and looks directly into his eyes. Say no to drugs. Drugs are bad. And while Peter is gaping like a fish, Tim tiredly shoves the blonde off Peter, adding, and if you're working for Road, then there are ways to get out of that. Like alerting the Wayne Foundation. The guy he stole from? No thanks. Or the bats, or... Guys, I'm not involved in drugs. What are you talking about? The two siblings seem to glitch, stalling in their movement save for the slowly dawning confusion on their faces, and the slow movement of their eyes to meet each other's gazes. Then the two snap their heads to Casa in sync. looking at her with an expression of profound confusion. Not lying, she signs, amusement and exasperation coloring her features. But, you idiot! But the chemicals! What chemicals? Peter asks, glad that they're all on the same page for the first time, even if that page is titled, "What the fuck is going on?" and is filled with incoherent keyboard smashes. Red Robin came up to me and told me that he was worried that you were aiding in recreational drug manufacturing because you're producing carbon tet. Okay, shit, bluffing time. I wasn't making drugs. I was using the carbon tet to make a fire extinguisher. It isn't a complete lie. He does often use his webs to stop, or at least reduce, flames. Now to come up with the reason he needs a fire extinguisher of all things. Because Firefly broke out in the last breakout, right? And he's known to target mainly the Bowery because the houses are less well constructed than in the nicer parts of town. Well, that was a complete guess, but it makes sense rationally. And I live in the Bowery, Tim. Oh, that, makes sense. We're sorry, Pete. Hey, I'm not sorry, Steph announces. If you ever need help with rogues hassling you, or with substance abuse in your life or family, you can come to me, us, any of us. We'll help you out, no questions asked. You got that, Ducky? She jabs him in the chest to punctuate her statements, and then makes some very intense and sincere eye contact until he nods. Yeah, thanks. You're welcome. Now, Tim, we need to have a chat. And then, after that absolute whirlwind of conversation, Stephanie drags Tim away, the pair of them disappearing into the throng of students. Peter and Cass watch them leave, Blazer slowly melting into the mass of blue, before meeting each other's eyes and bursting into laughter yet again. Tim, I think I fucked up, Steph says as soon as they arrive on the secluded roof of Gotham Prep. Tim, who had been dragged bewildered through the hallways of Gotham Prep, managed to look simultaneously absolutely done with her bullshit and freshly concerned. The fuck did you do, Steph? I may or may not have put a hit on Peter's parents/guardians. Pardon? I may or may not have put out a hit on Peter's parents/guardians. I still can't hear you. I put a hit out on Peter's foster dad. What? Well, I thought he was forcing Peter to sell drugs. Well, he wasn't. Well, I know that now. Tim takes several deep breaths, and then he takes several more. And then he counts to 10 just to make extra doubly sure that he doesn't punch Stephanie in the face. Who did you put the hit out on with? Slade? What? No, he's a perv. Lady Shiva? Boo, bad mom. Deadshot? I want the guy roughed up, not dead. Prue? If I had her number, I would have far more blackmail material on you than I do. Which says a lot. Black Spider? Nah, his gimmick is super cringe. I do have standards. Cormorant? Isn't he in Blackgate right now? Cheshire. Don't want to take her away from Leon. Fair. Yeah. Carl Schiffinger? Who the hell is that? Sandy Patrickson Brown. Okay, now you're just making names up. Logan Retzahowski. Should I be concerned about the amount of possible hitmen you can name off the top of your head? Don't worry about it. I'm worrying. Okay, fine. I give up. Who did you put out the hit with? Stephanie. Tim sings songs. I can't help you if I don't know who did it. It's Jason. Oh, shit. Yeah. Ha, good luck with that one. You're on your own. What? You were willing to help me with Lady Shiva, but not Jason? Lady Shiva has my respect. Jason tried to shoot me with a bazooka. Okay, well, at that precise moment, right when Stephanie was about to start bartering her dignity away, her knight in shining yellow armor came to her rescue. Sup, random citizens of this fair city? What do you fine fellows and fellowettes doing on this rooftop? Ow! Steph smacks him upside the head, pretending that slapping a back-grade helmet with no protection didn't feel like disciplining a brick wall. Tim gives her a high five for her troubles. What are you doing here, Ass? I thought you were dealing with a trafficking ring near the West Docks. I was, and now it is dealt with. Hey, go you! Tim gives Duke a fist bump, and suddenly Steph realizes that her high five was patronizing. She decides she'll pout about it later. Duke disables his comms and continues talking. Yeah, anyway, Before I head back to the prison that is the education system, I decided to give you guys a heads up. I think Peter is being or has been abused. Fuck, she and Tim say in sync, too caught up in the news that they had slowly started piecing together themselves. But they were still utterly unprepared to hear said out loud, and they forget to jinx personal padlock 123 each other. What was delayed? She asks, recovering quicker than Tim. He recognized my bruised ribs from the warehouse explosion over in the fashion district yesterday, told me he knew how to spot them like he was informing me that he knows how to tie his fucking shoes, and then gave me several bad-approved ways to minimize the pain. Think about how many times he must have bruised his ribs to be able to rattle that off in a fucking Spanish class. As Tim starts, an expression of anguished revelation painted across his features. Peter wasn't moved into foster care because of abuse. He was moved because he was orphaned. He's only been staying with Murdoch for 5 months, our first sighting of him being just over 2 months ago. It should take longer than that to be able to cope with abuse the way you're describing, meaning that either he was abused in his previous homes, or Murdoch abuses him frequently and severely enough that this is how he is reacting, even after such a short amount of time. Duke finishes for him, sharing that angry, sad resignation. Well, Steph says, garnering both boys' attention. Guess he's already put out a hit on the son of a bitch. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 27 of Green Through and Through by Another Fucking Robin. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next chapter.